one of the most important and moving sections of Tanakh for me is Isaiah 58. It's the Haftarah that we read on Yom Kippur. In it, the prophet Isaiah calls on the people to cry out to God, and then specifically mentions their fast, which is why it's so appropriate to read on Yom Kippur. Because on Yom Kippur we spend a day in services, we beat our breast, we lament, we try to change our ways, we transform ourselves through a process of teshuvah, or rather we try to complete that process that we have hopefully engaged in, at the very least, in the 10 days before Yom Kippur. Isaiah critiques the fast, says, "Is this the fast that I desire? A day to afflict body and soul, bowing your head like a reed, covering yourself with sackcloth and ashes?" It's a rhetorical question. "Do you call this a fast, a day worthy of the favor of Adonai? Isn't this instead actually the fast that I desire? To break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke, to let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved? Is it not to share your bread with the hungry, and to take the homeless poor into your home, and never to neglect your own flesh and blood?" Then Isaiah says, if you do that, then God's light will burst forth, and then that will be a fast that is something that is meaningful, powerful, that God pays attention to. So how can we engage in a fast like that? How can we break the bonds of injustice and remove the heavy yoke? How can we let the oppressed go free and release all those enslaved? That's very difficult. That's social justice. That's trying to change the whole of society, while also focusing on social action, certain individuals whom we try to free from oppression, from slavery. But it's verse 7 that resonates with me most strongly on Yom Kippur, a day when we are traditionally fasting. Isn't it to share your bread with the hungry, and to take the homeless poor into your home, and never to neglect your own flesh and blood? When I was younger, I turned to my mother and said, "We have spare rooms. Could we have homeless people sleep in our house?" And it was a lovely intention, but the concern was that we would wake up one day, as my mother explained to me, that we would wake up one day and all the family valuables had been stolen and the person would have disappeared. Talmud actually addresses that issue in a rather interesting story. So if not taking the homeless into our home, could we at least share our bread with the hungry? How might we do that? Well, Maimonides from the Middle Ages talks of a ladder of charity. And he talks about the different rungs on the ladder of charity in terms of better ways of giving. He says that the worst way of giving, even though it is still giving and that is a good thing, is giving grudgingly. And then better than that is at least giving willingly. Better than that is giving when the recipient has to ask for help. But even better than that is when both the person who are giving and receiving know each other. But then it gets even better. Even better than that would be when the recipient knows the donor, but the donor doesn't know the recipient. Even better than that is when the donor knows the recipient, but the recipient doesn't know the donor. The second level, the second highest level, is when both donor and receiver don't know each other. Because then it is truly an act of giving. It's not an act of giving to a specific person for a particular response, and they're not receiving from a particular person because they don't know who gave it to them, and therefore they don't feel that they owe them anything in the future. The highest level on this ladder of charity is essentially entering into business partnership, is giving a poor person a job so that they are no longer poor. We might not be able to do that, but we can do the second rung on Maimonides' ladder of charity. And that is, we can engage in feeding the poor, feeding the homeless, feeding the hungry, we can engage in that in such a way that they don't know who it is specifically who's giving to them, and we don't know to whom we're giving. And so that's why I am so proud of this community in this moment, because we have set up a food pantry outside our temple. We have created a space where anyone who comes to our community can bring a can of food and just place it in our food pantry. And then anyone in need, driving past, walking past, can stop and take the food that they need. That way, we fulfill the words of Isaiah chapter 58, to share our bread with the hungry. And we do so in such a way, not that it is grudgingly, not that they have to ask for help, which is embarrassing, not that we know each other, but at one of the highest levels of giving. And what that means is that you are able to help fulfill this fast that Isaiah implores us to engage in. This is an extraordinary moment in our community. This is a totally new way of engaging in immediate social action, in helping those in need. As we started discussing this, I remember someone saying, but what if people take the food? And I said, that's the point. Anyone who takes it must need it. We have to work on that assumption. We have to work positively, believe the best of people. And we know that there are huge numbers of people in Santa Fe who need food. We see that in the food line that gets longer and longer each week going down East Barcelona for the food pantry. And now, people who stop there and others as well are going to be able to get more food at any time they want, without any human interaction, without any embarrassment, without feeling like they owe anyone anything. And so, I invite you to bring a can of food. I invite you to participate, to help feed the hungry, to share our bread with the hungry. Every time that you come onto site, we just ask you to bring a single can of food and put it in that food pantry that's up at the top of the road. If you do that, we as a community can fulfill an extraordinary mitzvah in a kind, sensitive, important human way. We can truly share our bread with the hungry. And when might you come to our community? Well, you might come for Kabbalat Shabbat service tonight. You might come for Torah study tomorrow, which I appreciate I still have yet to write. But I know it's actually a very interesting topic. You can see it in the e-digest. You can also join us for our Shabbat Shacharit service afterwards. And you can join us for our presenter tomorrow evening with Havdalah. And this presentation is going to be on the art of Pesach. And it's going to include the wonderful Bird's Head Haggadah, which is fascinating, medieval manuscripts and more. It's a presentation for you to come and learn. It will add a little more to Pesach, since that starts next week. And then, of course, we end Shabbat with Havdalah as well. So we encourage you to come and join us for all these things over Shabbat, and we encourage you to bring a can of food so that we can all share our bread with the hungry, and we can all fulfill that fast that God so desires. I hope to see you over Shabbat or soon, and I wish you Shabbat Shalom.